Hi, my name is Lucie Fityus and I'm part of the Elite Athlete program at Newcastle University. My sport is road cycling and I'm currently studying civil engineering. Yeah, I started when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I can't quite remember exactly, but in under 13s, and it came along quite a lot since then. I started actually on the velodrome, or the track as they call it, and then in the off season of track, then we go to road to get a bit more fitness, and then I pretty much became road only in 2020. And after that, then I've been chasing it ever since, and now it's brought me over to Europe for the last 2 years. My home club is what used to be called Hunter District Cycling Club. It is now known as Newcastle Hunter Cycling Club. I've been part of them since I started, and they run some racing out the back near Kurri every week, or they used to. At the moment it's really a bit of a struggle for local racing. However, we have really good bunch rides around here where we get together on Saturdays, Wednesdays, Mondays for various loops and types of rides. Training does differ quite a lot throughout the year. I'll do programs where I really like high volume, and that will be between 25 and 30 hours a week, so that will end up being around 600, 700 kilometers a week. When I'm before a race, I might do a slightly smaller week, around 13 to 15 hours with some activations, but nothing too hard, so that you can go into the race a little bit tapered. And then on the off season, or when you're resting, it can be some lower volume, like 10 to 15 hours, but then doing some gym in there as well, about twice a week for about an hour or two a session. Yeah, so most of my training happens out on the road, out with the cars, out on just all the roads around Newcastle. I live currently in Europe most of the year, so I live just above Barcelona in Spain, so all on the roads out there. But to be honest, I bounce around all over the world, over in WA as well, in Perth, and then for my gym, I bounce around gyms as well depending on where I am, because I'm not usually in one spot for very long. Over in Girona where I live, I have a gym over there. And then when I'm over here, I used to go to the Hunter Academy of Sport gym here, and now I just go where I can. So I've just had my off season that started in September. I have 2 weeks off the bike, and then I start a build back into it. We have our national championships coming up in January in Perth. Straight after that, I have to go to Adelaide to do the Tour Down Under. And once that is finished, then I have a couple of races in Melbourne for Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race and the Surf Coast Classic. And then after that, I have a couple of weeks back home in Newcastle before I head back to Europe for the opening weekend of the Belgian Classics. I think this year was a really big breakthrough year for me. This was sort of my neo-pro year, where it's my first year as a full professional in Europe. It was a really big success, especially for the first half. It got me up to a level where the next 2 years I'll be racing at Vuelta, which is the peak of cycling, and I'm really, really excited for that. But starting the Tour de France this year would be absolutely a highlight, and then racing some bigger races called the Paris-Roubaix, which is known for its really tough cobble course, and the Tour of Flanders, which is a very, very big classic in Belgium, but they're the highlights. So I'd say for a challenge, again, would be the Tour de France. I had a pretty terrible time there, and it actually didn't go very well for me, which is a bit of a shame. I think it's really hard when you have a pinnacle race like that, and a lot goes into preparing for it, and it just doesn't go well. Unfortunately, it is the reality of sport that these things do happen, so you really have to put it behind you and focus on the next one. But breakthroughs were absolutely, during the classics racing in Belgium, it's the highest level you can be at for that type of racing, and I really found myself keeping up with that top few riders in those races. So that was a pretty big surprise, that I found myself looking around and going, wow, I'm still at the front of this race, and that was really exciting. It made me really realize that I have a future in this sport that's looking pretty good. So yeah, that would be the breakthrough. I'm really glad that I do have the studying. It gives me something to do when I'm not riding my bike, and I find that's really useful mentally. Of course, it can be pretty stressful at times, especially because I'm in my final year now, so the workload's pretty high. Fortunately, working with NUsport and working with the Elite Athlete pathway here at the University of Newcastle has allowed me to complete my degree in a really, really good way that works for me and around my sport. So I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, also off the bike, I like to read books as well, which just kind of lets me escape the world a little bit. And music, absolutely, having that in my ears when I'm training and everything just balances everything out.